Welcome to the Krown Codex. I'm your host, Levi, and this podcast is for young men. Young men who know they're meant for more, but don't necessarily have the right guidance. Each episode, I bring on an expert that's actually put in the hours, done the work, who can help you build wealth, further develop relationships, overall help you become a more stronger, grounded man. There's no fluff or gatekeeping or anything like that. It's just a knowledge that might have cost you hundreds, if not thousands. So if you get any value from this, please show some love, subscribe, drop a comment in below, as these experts are literally coming on here, giving up their time for free. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. I wanted to dive into a little bit of your background for the audience to know who you are and all that kind of stuff. So tell me a story of how you got into financial advising.
Yeah, so I'll tell a little bit about myself as well. So, my name is Heddwyn. I'm 28 years old. I've been a financial advisor for 8 years now, and first started in financial planning straight out of high school when I was 17. So, this is my 11th year going. How I started though is I started working for my parents' practice, and it wasn't anything flashy. Their receptionist quit, and they were looking for a receptionist, and I just graduated high school, so I sort of put my hand up in between going to university. I said I'll come and work for you for a few months, but it didn't take me long to really start enjoying the advice process, getting to meet the clients, and very quickly wanting to move into that next level of work, actually working with the clients more closely, working on financial strategies. And then when I sort of learned that it was really enjoyable and what I wanted to do, then I went and directed my university courses into financial planning.
So were you interested at first, or was it because of the reception that got you into it?
Truthfully, and probably like a lot of other young men, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My first thought was I really loved videography and I was going to go into movie making, which is as far from financial planning as you might think. At the same time, I was always always loved maths and solving problems, which was also part of the reason that I enjoyed videography. Was a lot of it is about solving problems, and that translated really well into financial planning and solving financial problems for your clients and how you can help get them to their goals. So that sort of same driver was always in me. I just sort of directed it another way that I never really looked at.
Yeah. Do you still dabble into videography, or?
Yeah. I still do a lot of social work, helping out Squash WA, and setting up their socials and recording videos and live streaming matches for them. So I still do a lot of that in my personal life. Just again out of a pure enjoyment out of it.
Was it you kind of was in it amongst it, or
Well,
to sit in the practices and kind of that's how you?
Yeah, so you're sort of sitting there at the front, and it obviously starts very simple. You're just making phone calls to clients and making coffees. But as you start learning things, other staff members will tap you on the shoulder. Hey, can you send this for me? Hey, can you do this? And you start picking up and learning parts of the job, and then it became an interest on my side as well. Actually, going and asking them, "Oh, is there anything I can do for you? Can I help with this? Can I help with that?" And after they sort of saw my interest in it, and also that I was willing to work hard, I guess, then they started giving me a bit more responsibility in the practice, and not responsibility, but more like work, I guess.
Yeah. Did you start here, or was it another one that you started off and then kind of?
No, all here. So, to give a little bit more of my background, so my parents are financial planners. They've been financial planning now for 30 years, but they didn't start their own practice till about 12 years ago. They left Westpac and started their own business. Okay. So again, it also helps growing up and having that financial background in the family as well, because a lot of what they taught me as a young man I've obviously taken on board and given that
Yeah.
advice forward.
So you have the background and you kind of started off as a receptionist. From like the start and like now, when did it kind of click for you? Like, I get it now.
Yeah, so good question. I was, it literally came down to, I was working on my client strategies and it was just born of interest that, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we investing money here? Why are we directing money there? And, and I would keep asking these questions um, and it just filled me with a lot of interest to figure that out, put all the pieces together, and like I said, solving problems, right? It comes back to that foundation. So for me, as soon as I started building that interest in it, I then was pushing my parents that I want to go to the next ladder of the chain, um, we call it paraplanning, but that's where you're effectively getting instructions from the advisor and going and formalizing that into advice, right? And then you go and check that back with the advisor once you're done, right? So I wanted to quickly move into that. So within a year, I had gone from reception all the way forward into paraplanning, which typically doesn't happen, but it was just because I was pushing for it, and I had a lot of interest in getting to push my career forward as well. Once I realized I had an interest in
Yeah.
it, yeah.
So you had a curiosity, and it was like, I guess the why. What is there anything specific that you were?
Um,
Did it just like interest you how it all came together? Was that it? Or
Um, I mean, it's a little cliche, but the other thing is then there's that sense of fulfillment that you're helping someone, right? I can't talk it up as much as say a doctor, but I'm sure at the end of the day they went through the 8 years of study that they went through, their pain and suffering, because they like helping people,
yeah,
and that was the enjoyment at the end, was that you realize what you're doing is actually changing lives, helping people buy their first home, helping people set up for their family, helping people retire. That's the end goal, right? So
do you feel like you had to shift to that mindset to enjoy it,
I don't think so. I think
or it
that,
came naturally?
and I think in a lot of people, it's just a natural thing. I think inherently we all want to help people.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah.
So
Do you think most people would have made the same decision in your position or not?
definitely not. I don't think so. I think I think I've always been a very highly driven person, that I set my mind on a goal and I just go like nuts towards it, right? Um, Whereas I think a lot of other people don't have that same drive behind them, right? And especially like again, 17-year-old, their first priority is probably not going to be their career or whatever. Their first priorities are usually going to be like, hang out with friends, or maybe I'll go to uni and see what else is out there in the world, kind of thing. But for me, it was just a pure drive of I knew where I wanted to go in life.
Where specifically do you think that drive came from?
I think specifically the driver is okay. I think this is what it comes down to. So, um, I've been very fortunate in my life. Um, like my parents have traveled with us a lot. They've helped look after us. They've helped us go whatever we need through school. They'll help us through that. But it wasn't always that way. Um, from like my dad would always tell me stories about they could never afford nappies, so they had to, find alternatives, maybe wrap me in a tea towel or something like that.
Yeah.
To even things that I remember myself as well about, some nights we'll just have mashed potato and baked beans because we couldn't afford meat that week or something. And then from there, things slowly started changing. And, it was, suddenly then we had our own house, and then we were able to, eat a bit better. And then we started doing some family holidays, and seeing that change of lifestyle, even as a young man or a teenager, it obviously impacts you. But what I also remember is my parents would go to work at 8 in the morning, probably normal for a lot of parents, maybe especially in a shift town like Kalgoorlie, probably earlier. But they wouldn't come home till 10 o'clock at night. So they would be at work for, say, 14 hours a day, and I wouldn't see them. But every bit of hard work and sweat that they were dripping flourished and helped them get themselves and the family into that position. And so for me, it became a driver of realizing that having wealth behind you and good income and a good career gives you also freedom in life. And so that's what, I guess, if you want to talk about another driver specifically, I think that's what it comes down to.
No, that's super interesting. I didn't know that about you, but yeah. So the drive's coming from because you're seeing, you know, the end result of what it looks like, and it's a good life. But you've also seen what it started off and how it got to that point, and the importance of getting there.
Well, and I think crucially as well to see, like you asked where the drive came from, I think seeing my parents, how hard they worked, um, sort of makes you realize it's not easy. It's not just like, you fall into a pit of gold and then the next day your life's changed, right? To see them work like that over such a long period of time to get themselves in that position, um, it's really inspiring for me as well to have role models like them. But also made me realize the reality is that it takes time to get there.
Yeah. So, for young men that are listening to this right now, what should they take from that moment specifically?
I think the biggest drive or the biggest takeaway that they should have is probably time. In my career, I've noticed that, especially talking to young men, they sort of want everything quickly. They want it, a nice car, a nice house, nice clothes, all of that as quickly as they can. When it doesn't happen overnight, and it needs to take time, right? And also for young people, you tell them, just work hard for 10 years, and for a lot of young people, they say, "Geez, 10 years, jeez, I'll be 30 by then." I'll be old, right? When if they go and if they have any friends who are 30, like if they just went and asked them, hey, you know, if you were 30 like right now and you had this, like say a car paid off and a house, would you be happy? They'd probably be like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'd love that. But most 30-year-olds aren't in that position. So just realizing that, it's that time factor that really plays the biggest part.
So we have that time factor. Where do you think like that urgency on young men is, or just young people in general, is coming from?
Big drivers behind that is probably social media, I'd say is a big thing. I think we see it these days more than ever, right? You see influencers driving really nice cars, living in mansions, essentially doing whatever they want to do day to day. Um, so, and then on top of that, you get forced all the advertising, nice clothes, all of that gets put in front of you. They go to festivals as fashion is such a big thing as well. So it's just around them all the time. And I think that really influences them to say, they look at that as that's the lifestyle that I want, which is fair, and those influencers have somehow, it's all the 1% have found a way to get that wealth quickly and it's worked. And they look at that and they say, that's where I want to be. But the reality is that it's not even 1%, it's probably less than 1% that end up in that position. And it's not easy to, I guess, get that, right? It's those influencers, for example, have probably been very driven in their own right and started their careers as an influencer very early on as well. And all we're seeing is the end result of what could be 5 years of hard work for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing, in my opinion, is that is just looking at what they see online. What we see online impacts us so much.
Yeah. Now, I actually want to dive into that because I feel like it's a big battle between using our time and looking long term and making as much money as possible now. But like for me, it's kind of like, and I'm sure a lot of guys, they get into these courses and all that, pay, and sometimes that might sacrifice their long term saving and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, what's your honest opinion on how young people handle their money right now?
There's a lot there. It's a
Yeah.
big question, obviously. Um, okay, I see, being a young man myself, right? Um, I also get frustrated at all the rhetoric online that young people waste too much money on coffee and eating out, and if they just save that, they'd be a millionaire, kind of thing, um, which is crap. It's a load of rubbish. But everything is to a point, right? Um, if you're going and eating out every single day, well, it's going to add up quickly, and before you know it, you're not going to have any money left, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, right? Um, so I would say young men these days spend so much or a lot of money in two ways. One is probably going out, drinking too much, gambling too much. That's another big one at the moment in this country. And then the third is probably taking out too many small loans, afterpays, zips, or even credit cards, and on the bigger side, car loans. Um, like people never realize that, like a car loan, the interest rate, whatever it is, doesn't matter, right? It's not about the interest cost to you over 5 years. That doesn't matter. It's the fact that, say, that's $1,000 a month coming out of your pay, um, reducing your take home essentially on an asset that's losing value. And it just leaves you with less money to actually build your wealth going forward, right? Something as simple as that. Like, it's nice to have a good car and go camping, or, um, you know, maybe pick up your girlfriend or something like that. Yeah. It's always nice. But the damage that it's doing is not in the interest cost, it's just in what you're losing out of your paycheck, you know? So that's sort of, from a spending perspective, that's probably the biggest things that I see, is just nothing is in moderation. It's like, let's drink on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let's not just gamble at the races once a year. Let's go to the tab. Let's go to the casino. Let's go on sports bet. West Coast are playing. Let's put some money down, right? All that. It's never in moderation. It's always like, let's do it all. And then before you know it, you got nothing left.
What specifically do you think they're getting wrong?
Specifically, maybe tell me a little bit more specifically. Do you mean like on a day-to-day basis, or?
Well, we'll touch on two. One was the coffee and all that. I, for myself, my family, would say I'm very frugal and all that. And there's definitely been times where, like, I've literally just had to make an account just for, like, I've literally say fun. Just literally to spend money. Like, you live life once, don't be so, like, just, have a little bit of fun, go out and all that kind of stuff. But it always plays in the back of my mind, where do we draw the line of, because I think in the back of my head, every little thing counts. So I feel like every time I do that, a little step goes back. So
yeah, okay, yeah. Well, that's a good spot to start. So again, sort of going back into my own personal history with finance as well. So when I first started working for my parents as a receptionist, they were paying me $12 an hour. To put in perspective, I was also working at McDonald's at the time, and they were paying me $16 an hour. So my parents were paying me less than what McDonald's were. So I think that worked out to something like basically like $1,000 a fortnight was all I had. My parents would charge me Still, they charged me $400 a fortnight, $200 a week in rent out of that. So I was left with $600 a fortnight.
How old were you at this time?
So I was 18, right?
Oh, nice.
17,
Yeah.
18, yeah. So I paid them a bit of rent and I was left with $600 a fortnight. But I knew that things like, even as a young man, I wanted to travel. I wanted to go and see places in Australia or around the world. Um, and so I would allot myself, I'd say, okay, out of that 600, um, because I want to go and travel, I'm going to immediately go and put, say, 300 over here because traveling's not necessarily cheap, right? Then I would say, okay, well, I also need to start um, saving money for my first house, right? And so every fortnight, $200, right? It's $400 a month. It's not massive, but it's a start. And I'd go, well, what do I have left? $100. Okay. Well, my phone plan is $40 a fortnight. Okay. That goes $60. Because I wanted to travel, I literally left myself $60 a fortnight. I was having 2-minute noodles for lunch every single day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was it. That's how I sort of just got by. And then if I wanted to drink, I probably just wouldn't most of the time. But the main thing is that out of that, the fun part that I left myself was that traveling, which I still accounted for. But I just said, look, if that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and spend, $3,000 a year on a holiday. I'm going to make sure that I'm not eating into, like you said, your financial future. And so I knew that, okay, as long as I put that 200 a fortnight aside, that's a good start for now. And then I'll work on raising my income so I can keep feeding more into building that wealth for myself without impacting some of my lifestyle things, just being very diligent with myself.
Yeah.
And that's actually stuck with me now. So even that personal spending, so back then was $400 a fortnight. I've slightly increased that, even though my wage has gone up. I still probably only spend about 600 a fortnight, right? And my wage has probably gone up 10 times what it was back then. I've only increased my spending by 2 times, you know, kind of thing.
So where would you draw the line? Because I feel like there's some people in a position where raising their income, just in raising your income in general, it's not the easiest thing. So where would you draw the line of, hey, I need to look after myself, or hey, I need to dial down and keep saving, or put more towards saving?
Yeah, I think there people just need to be honest with themselves. Um, Maybe I'm not the best example, but it's also not like I had the biggest income, right, either at that age. But it comes down to whatever you earn, you can live on it, right? Realistically, as humans, we've got survival instincts. We'll make it work. If you only earn $40,000 a year, you figure it out. You eat 2-minute noodles, you know? The trap that we fall into is when the wage goes up, oh, we've got a bit of extra money. Or maybe I will go buy those nice shoes for myself, you know, instead of being hard and being like, okay, cool, I've increased my wage. Now let's save that money. Let's put it aside and just not falling into, we call it lifestyle creep. And it's called lifestyle creep because it happens very slowly. You know, your boss, maybe they're raising wages by 10 grand. Maybe they're paying you a Christmas bonus. Maybe you've finished some education, so you're sort of going to the next level, or you're, in the third year of your apprenticeship. So these changes happen slowly, and sometimes there's 6, 12 years between these changes. And when it happens, you don't even think about it, you start spending more and more, right? So that's a massive trap that, you know, people get stuck into. And before they know it, they're spending way more than they ever need to. But it feels like, because that's crept up on them, it feels like they have to keep spending it in the sense that it's a lifestyle they've gotten used to.
Yeah. So just to break that down a little bit, so we all have this natural instinct, like when times are tough, we'll dial down. But when we have that income, I guess a little bit more of a breathing room, that we tend to, increase our lifestyle and all that, and not actually use that breathing room for I guess, changing the whole situation in general.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens if they don't make that change? What happens to them in the long term?
In the long term,
Yeah.
when they're 30,
Yeah.
they're looking back at the last 10 years, you go, what have I accomplished? Well, I've got this car loan. I don't have a house. Um, I'm sort of still doing the same thing I was 10 years ago. I've not gotten anywhere. I've not moved forward in my life. Um,
Have you
which,
had a lot of people come to you like that, or
oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So, and it doesn't just happen at 30, by the way. I mean, I know that we're talking about young people
yeah,
here, but my clients, I'll meet a 60-year-old and they'll say, damn, I wish I met you 20 years ago. I'll meet a 50-year-old. Damn, I wish I met you 20 years ago. I'll meet a 40-year-old. Damn, I wish I met you 10 years ago. Meet a 30-year-old. Damn, I wish I met you 10 years ago.
yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is. It's people um, are always looking back and realizing, like, what have I done with that time? You know, because before they know it, we always joke around, right? Time moves fast, kind of thing. Geez, we're almost already halfway through 2026. All those jokes happen, but time does move quick. And when you look back, you want to actually feel like you're moving somewhere.
Mm. How do you feel in those moments when they say that to you?
Talking to clients,
Yeah,
I can't help but laugh these days
yeah,
because I hear it from all the different
yeah,
ages,
yeah,
right? Um, I do really try and emphasize, especially to, like, sure, the 60-year-old, like, yeah, you got to get your shit together,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
like, come on,
yeah,
you don't have heaps of time here.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but when I meet that 30-year-old, let's say, um, I will be realistic, and I'll say to them, like, hey, look, yeah, if I'd met you 10 years ago, sure, you'd be in a much better position now. But you're still a young man. There's still, so much time ahead of you that if you make the right changes now, you can still hit those goals, right? It just might mean a little bit later than had you started when you were 20 or 25, right? But it's still, and that's what I sort of emphasize to them is that, like, yep, funny if I'd met you 10 years ago, but hey, you're still a young person. Let's get you sort of moving.
Do you think it's their fault or they're just being misled?
Information. They're not getting the right information. Uh, there's a lot of misinformation, like you're saying, misled. Um, One, again, comes down to the internet, what people hear. There's so much, and we sort of only touch on the social media side of it, but also things like, um, around investing in particular. There's so much information and so much misinformation that unless you really understand the concepts, you wouldn't ever pick up on it. Like for me, if I'm scrolling through, looking at reels or whatever, uh, and there's a financial video that comes up, I'll listen to it, but I'll understand where they're understanding the concepts correctly or not. But the person who's behind the camera is teaching it like it's fact, and it's not really. Um, so to sort of go back to it, that young people are getting fed a lot of misinformation, which is not helping them. The system as a whole, like, they don't really teach a lot of financial concepts in school. Maybe like save money, which is probably about the best you'll get.
Yeah.
Um, I've sort of really made an effort. I've had the fortunate um, uh, background where my parents had obviously taught me from a young age. I've always, whenever young men come into my office, I always take time to talk to them. And I don't mean to, like, say it like I'm bragging, but more it is that I try and pay it forward. Same reason that I took you on as a client was that you came to me as a young man, you had goals that you wanted to achieve, and I want to actually help set that up for you and help you reach that, right? And even if there's not that constant relationship like we've had over the last couple of years, even if I can just give them the information and they can take that away and action it in some way, and then actually take that information and be able to feed through the misinformation, then at least I feel like I'm doing something.
So is there any like chance or possibility to do it ourselves and sort through that information, or do we need like proper education to filter?
Definitely don't need proper education. I mean, it's a sad, like, proper education. I'm assuming you're talking about, do you need to go to university?
Yeah, like
Like,
have a degree.
no, you definitely don't need to. If you can get the opportunity to talk to an advisor, do that. Unfortunately, a lot of advisors in this country are quite, they'll set a limit that unless you've got 300 grand, I'm not going to talk to you. Unless you've got 500 grand, I'm not going to talk to you. So they kind of really don't spend a lot of time with young people because of those barriers. So that would be really tough. I'd say, you know, um, things like this where you're getting industry professionals in to talk to you, these are great sources of information for young people that they don't need to go and spend money on, that they don't need to go and get a degree or worry about misinformation. They're getting an industry professional to actually talk through.
Yeah.
But even then, another thing just comes down to like, here's a actually, I'll tell you what, here's something for anyone listening that can just take home and just realize straight away. Um, if it is quick and fast with massive unrealistic returns, that sounds too good to be true. It's too good to be true. That's probably what it comes down to at the end.
Yeah.
It's a gut thing that, like, yeah, wow, this is great. Why isn't everyone doing it? And it's like, exactly. Why isn't everyone doing it? Maybe there's a problem with this.
Yeah.
So that's probably the main thing is just, yeah. And I don't mean to just like focus on this too much, but again, it just comes down to that time factor that, you don't need to chase massive returns. Like if we're talking about investing and that sort of thing, it doesn't need to be massive returns. It just needs to be stable and consistent, and you know that it's just going to keep, ticking away and growing over time. Time is the big one.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the thing. It's funny that you mentioned like the education side of things because it's kind of sounds sad, but every single expert in all the field I've talked about, they're not really happy with what gets taught. So, what do you think? Just one thing, or one of the most important things you wish the education system taught us?
No one else is happy with it. um, okay. One of the biggest things I think is in school, it would be really good for people to learn about tax. Um, I know it sounds very boring, but it honestly, for some reason, no one teaches it in school, and it's very important. I mean, you pay tax all through your life on the money you make, on what you invest in. When you buy a house, when you buy a car, when you buy a coffee, you pay tax. No one ever teaches you that, you know. But I guess to go maybe something a little.
No, that's a little bit because I've had the same thought process, and I picked up a couple books on tax. One, it's not the most fun subject to read about, so I'm curious what specifically about tax. Like I know it applies to everything, but I don't understand. For me, in like a long term aspect, why is it so important to have an understanding?
Yeah. I'll use an example which will probably be easiest, right? Um, in Australia, people love investment properties, love them. And why is that? Because it gets sold to them that it is a tax haven, right? They get told that you can claim it back against your tax and you'll have someone in there paying you rent and making all this money. So, what is actually happening from a tax perspective when you buy property, right? You're going and getting a loan, you're going and paying interest to the bank, and then you're going and paying rate, sorry, you're paying insurance, you're paying maintenance of the property, you're paying a property manager. So all up, you may accumulate, say, $40,000 of costs, right? And when you go and lodge your tax return, geez, you might get like $15,000 back in your tax return. That sounds great, right? Why wouldn't you want 15 grand back in your tax return? Except for some reason they forget about the $40,000 they spent and they're only getting 15 back, right? So there's this concept that people always talk about called negative gearing. That is effectively what negative gearing is that why do we call it negative gearing in the first place is that you're making a loss on your investments. That's the first thing, right? Um, which is why actually, and it's not a term people talk about often, but we only invest positively. We only do positive gearing, right? Because we want to make a profit at the end of the day. So negative gearing is this whole concept about you can offset your tax by buying these investments and it all sounds great and you're reducing your tax down, but they never tell you that you're actually losing money at the end of the day. You're out of pocket more than what you're making and sending you further backwards. Right? And that's just a common misunderstanding across the investment property market. Now, don't get me wrong again, that you've got someone in there paying you rent, right? Which again sounds all well and good, except you have to pay tax on that rent, right? The value of the property might go up. Again, all well and good. When you sell it, you got to pay tax, right? So it becomes again this whole thing where people are only getting fed maybe slight misinformation like what we were talking about before. Oh, there's such a big tax benefit for you to have this, when what's actually happening is they're forking out more money than they're getting back.
It's interesting because I feel like, one of the first books I ever read was like a real estate book.
Yeah.
And they talk about basically like this one thing and selling the dream that, you might be in debt for now, but in the long run, you might have that dream.
Yeah,
so
just to sort of touch on, like you said earlier, that have that passive income, right? Using property again, like that's what the dream is, right? Hey, you have 5 properties, they're all paying you like 30 grand a year in rent. Awesome, 150 grand a year. You don't even have to lift a finger. Not true, you still have to maintain the properties, but more or less, you don't have to go to work and clock in, right? That's the dream. Except that you've got to have no debt in that position and you got to get 5 properties, which is not easy to do, right? Especially these days, you probably need like $5 million, $5 million in property to do that. So another reason that we really avoid property as well, or why I always tell young people don't invest in property, is that you may invest in that one property. It may even be worth $1 million, right? But your passive income is limited to whatever you can charge in rent. And if that is $1,000 a week, sounds good, but that's it, $1 million, you're only getting 5% out of it. Plus you still have to pay tax, but that's regardless. So that dream, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, that gets sold to a lot of people, that's the only avenue to build your passive income portfolio. And it's actually probably one of the worst, most inefficient ways to do it.
Yeah, I think because I've, especially the 2 years here, I've like documented each step of what I'm doing business wise, what I'm doing with you, and all that kind of stuff. My first, like before I even came here, the video I made was hopefully I have my first property. That was the very first thing. So there's like a lot of misinformation, and that's one of the biggest reasons, because I felt like if I do this, I want someone who knows what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. We've gone a different direction, but what is like, for someone who's listening to right now, what is like the first thing they need to admit?
First thing is probably lower your expectations. That's probably the first thing. Lower your expectations on your lifestyle. Lower your expectations on your investment returns. Lower your expectation on how long it's going to take. Right? Again, we don't need to be in that flash style of life where we're traveling all the time and we're buying all the clothes we want all the time. It doesn't need to be that straight away. We can get there, but it doesn't need to be straight away. So that's what my first thing is. I'd say lower the expectations.
How are we? Because I feel like there's a clash with, you know, being like positive and glass half full and like I can do this to, you know, put in those expectations. Hey, no, this is right. Like what specific expectations are we talking about here?
Okay. Well, the first thing that I just want to say is that no, keep your glass half full. Your glass is half full because have those lofty goals, whatever they may be. If you want to be scooting around in private jets, have that as a goal, right? I have no issue with that. But it's just then have a realistic expectation of how long it's going to take to get there. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Hell, if that's your goal, it probably wouldn't even happen in 5 years, right? But let's get there, okay? So let's bring that expectation immediately to reality, okay? To maybe use an example that's a little bit more palatable would be like...
sorry to cut you. That's what I wanted to pinpoint was we have this ideal outcome. We have where we are now and where we're sitting. How do we know that our goal's too far? Like it's unrealistic or it's just right?
Okay. You're right. It's very hard to tell if you're setting realistic expectations for yourself. Obviously, in my life, again, through the benefit of education, I've modeled everything out, right? Very specifically. I think some of it's common sense. I think some of it's like just understanding that, you know, if your goal is to get $500,000 in the bank, okay, well, you know that's not going to happen in 1 or 2 years. So let's try and set that to say 5 years. Still might be a little unrealistic, depends what you do for work, but let's just use a bit of common sense first of all, right? And hey, if that is your goal, there's also a part of it that's like maybe that's your motivation, that you can be a little unrealistic and use it as a motivator. Just don't let it get you down if you get to 5 years and you've only got 499 in the bank, you know. So that kind of thing. But if you want to like sort of think about those goals and work out those expectations more like specifically, I think it's just going to come down to crunching the numbers. You know, I think, yep, common sense is a good start. If you really want to be specific, you just got to crunch the numbers on it and really work out that strategy for yourself. I mean, again, that's where my job comes in, is you would talk to someone like myself, if you're not confident in doing it, and we would go and work that out, how much money needs to be moved here, there, this investment, to hit that 500,000 in 5 years kind of goal.
Yeah. So we have to really break it down and calculate the cost to reaching that goal.
Well, definitely.
Yeah. Because I think this is where like the social media aspect comes in, is because, you know, from my marketing background, one of the things is, you know, pain points and pushing on that. And we have, especially with this scenario, we set like an expectation like this is going to take 5 years to get that private jet. And, you know, especially what we talked about before, that's not the like 5 years or 10 years to get that. Where the market comes in, I feel like it's like pushing on that pain point. Hey, let me remove that pain, and they'll give it how to get, you know, that private jet or house in 2 years or 1 year, and it pops in.
Yeah, you're talking about the market as in the investment market. Sorry,
No, I'm talking about, you know, we have these expectations and goals, and generally realistic, it's long term to build towards them. And where a lot of the market comes in is for my goals. Let's say my goal is to get a private jet, and I'm scrolling on TikTok on that. I'll get like an ad telling me how I can do that much faster, much quicker, and all that kind of stuff. So it's difficult when I look. Obviously, that's my goal. I'd look into that, so I dive deeper, and I might see some case studies and all that. I'm curious, what should I be aware of when I'm in that process?
Yeah, okay. And sorry, just to clarify, so you're saying about people might set realistic expectations for themselves, and then because of things like social media, it might, sort of lead them astray. Is that what sort of you mean?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, make their dreams think it's what you said, really quick, faster,
yeah,
more money, like instantly now, instead with that more realistic long term. But yeah.
yeah. Um, well, I think you've sort of just said it as well, using that same mentality of like, common sense, going back to remaining realistic, using your common sense to think for yourself, and then that common sense goes further into: is it fast? Is it quick? Is it too good to be true? Yeah.
Okay.
So I think yeah,
Yeah.
without going too much into the
Yeah.
details, it really just comes, that gut feeling that you get, like, no, this can't be true. Like this just doesn't sound right.
Yeah. I think it's just a little hard to distinguish is, am I nervous about doing this? Is this actually a wrong decision? Or should I take this risk or miss out? Like it's a lot of, but we talked about, what's not really working, things to stay away. I want to talk about more the foundations. As a 20-year-old, what should I actually be doing right now?
Yeah. So a 20-year-old, the most important thing is that you should be investing money as regularly as possible, and just going into shares and stocks. Okay. But the key part is the regular investing, not obviously about where you invest it, but that actually matters a lot less, right? Like I could simplify that in 2 seconds of like, go and find a good index fund that's not too expensive, right? I don't really care too much about what it is as long as it's, um, uh, one of the popular ones. Like people always talk about Vanguard or iShares. I don't care. Just use one of them, right? They're all very similar. Most important thing, put the money away all the time, when you can, how often you can, and never think about it. Just put it in the back of your brain, right? That's probably the biggest thing, okay? And then that number, what you put away, all comes down to what are your financial goals? What do you want to hit, right? Again, for me, like I wanted to buy a house, so I gave myself $60 a fortnight. You may not want to be that strict on yourself, right? But it all depends where you want to be and in what time, right? But that's what I'd say. That's step number one of the setting
Can
the
you break that into steps for me?
um, the steps there are just to say, okay, first of all, work out your budget, okay? Or even let's go step zero. Work out your goal. And it doesn't have to be super specific, but just have an idea. That may be something, to sort of put an example, was say, in 5 years, I want to buy my first house, okay? So that's your goal, right? From there, work out what that is going to cost you, okay? You're pretty much working backwards. Work out what it's going to cost you, then work out how much money you have to put away every single fortnight or every single month, how often you get paid. That part is the simple part.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the last step is then that money, you just invest it into a index fund and leave it. Let it grow. Don't whatever is happening in the world, whatever Trump is saying, whatever Albanese is saying, whatever whoever is saying, you don't even think about it. You just keep putting the money in. Right?
I think we talked about this. Like I started with ETS before, so I had a little bit of knowledge before we worked together. But before that, like when you say ETS, I have no idea what that is.
Do you want to use this podcast to go into a little bit of detail with that financial stuff?
I don't want them to, YouTube all this kind of stuff and then get misled. Secondly, why is it, just briefly, why is like, what is an ETF and why is it a better option for us?
Okay. Yep. Um, let's go into a little bit, just so then again your listeners can actually take something more malleable out of this. So, quick history is that ETFs, exchange traded funds, managed funds, never used to exist. It used to basically just be direct shares where you're literally going and buying Woolworths and BHP and Apple and Microsoft shares, right? And you would put that all into, you know, a portfolio. Okay. Now, doing that means that you're not spreading your money out and diversifying enough. So, what the industry did is they came up with something called a managed fund, which takes all of those shares and puts it into one single option for you. Says, oh, do you want to invest in these companies? Well, you can do all of that instead of going and doing it 20 different separate times. Here's one single investment, one transaction. You can invest in all of them in one hit, right? So that's all a managed fund is. It's investing into shares, but it's just sort of consolidating it all and simplifying it. Okay. Now, a managed fund has ongoing fees as part of the manager behind it who is going to sell and purchase the shares for you. Okay. But there's no buy cost to get into it. It's just that management cost. Whereas when you're buying 20 shares individually, you got to pay brokerage fees on everything. Okay. Then further down the track is um, ETFs were sort of born from managed funds because there was an ability by using technology to make the whole process cheaper. Okay, so an exchange traded fund is very similar to a managed fund, except that management fee is usually a lot cheaper. Okay, the downside is that there is a brokerage fee involved. So that sort of they've almost separated the costs in a way. It's still usually cheaper overall, but they've sort of separated it. Okay. Um, so what we use with our clients is exchange traded funds and managed funds, but it depends on the type of investor you are and how often you're investing. If you are investing into exchange traded funds because you have to pay fees every single time you buy it, we don't usually recommend it for people that are constantly putting money away. It might be, say, for a retiree who they've just got all the money invested and they don't really touch it. They just let it tick away, right? But if you're constantly putting money in, you want to be investing into managed funds so you're not constantly paying these fees all the time. That's sort of the difference, I guess, between the three, if that answers that question.
You hear about this and kind of a little bit aware of it, but still won't do this. So, why do you think that's the case?
I think a little bit is fear, because we hear all the time about, share markets up and down and up and down, especially lately. So first of all, is that there's a little bit of fear that you're going to lose your money, and then the other thing is I think that there's so many different platforms, hard to know where to start. Okay. Um, Again, on that platform side of thing, just go with bigger, well-known companies. Don't you know? Don't overcomplicate it. Check the fees. Make sure the fees aren't too bad. Um, but yeah, that's just keep it very simple.
So big trusted companies, just compare the fees with the brokerage, um, and all that kind of stuff, and make those regular payments.
Yeah, just regularly put the money in. And then, like the first thing that I mentioned is that there's that fear aspect of losing your money. It's a big conversation I have with clients, is obviously around risk and risk management. Um, the short answer there is that as long as you're investing into what these index funds do or managed funds do, especially those big well-known ones like the Vanguard, for example, or the iShares, is they're only looking at, say, the top 100 companies globally and the top 50 in Australia, right? Which means they're only investing into well-established, well-known companies. I usually tell my clients, what do you think the odds are of Woolworths going bankrupt? Um, which is a big grocery chain, next to zero. Never say never.
Yeah.
But by investing in these managed funds, by whatever happens, Woolworths goes bankrupt, that's only 1 out of 20 of your investments, or 50. So you're diversified enough that that doesn't matter. But regardless, by being in these main companies, you know that there's going to be consistency, assurability. You know that dips and things are always going to just happen, because every now and then, like Woolworths as an example, or Wesfarmers is, they can't export live cattle anymore, so that's sort of impacted their shares a little bit. These things always happen, but in the long term, they're going to just keep growing. Okay, so I think as long as young people can just reduce that fear a little bit to it, and as long as you get the consistency going, what happens over time, that fear also goes away, and you just learn to roll with the punches. Right?
So it's kind of just, are you saying they need to, I guess, have a little bit of courage and bravery and just go along with it? Or
I wouldn't put it necessarily
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
because you're not just sort of throwing a Hail Mary,
Yeah.
but more about like, know that you've listened to podcasts like this, you've sought out the right information, tried to wade through, use your common sense to wade through the misinformation, find that right structure that you can invest your money and do it on a regular basis. Again, that consistency is the most important thing, and try not to look at it too much. Just know what your end goal is and that you're working towards the end goal.
What was the first thing you said? So it was breaking that down. Because it's like, I mean, I think I keep bringing it up, but it's just like, especially I had a lot of not the smartest, brightest, and when I'm doing my own research, it's hard to commit to I'm gonna put all my money in this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I guess, how do I overcome that?
Um, well, I think you're a very good example, right? What did you do? You did all your own research, but then you also went and spoke to someone, right? Spoke to a professional, right? Like, if you're sick, you go and talk to a doctor. You don't chat GPT the cure,
Yeah.
kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So you educated yourself, um, but then you also sought out someone in the industry that you can talk to, right? I think, and again, I don't want to push that too hard, because, and unfortunately, a lot of advisors will push young people away. But really, like, do try and talk to someone,
Yeah.
if you can.
Got the big mistakes and what we do with money, and we talked a little bit about those things. I want to dive a little more into like those traps that really just set us back massively.
Mm-hmm.
What is like the biggest trap you see young men make with money?
The biggest traps that I see young men make with money is, and again, I know that some of these things we've already spoken about, but probably the biggest one is taking out a car loan. Let's start there, right? Growing up in Kalgoorlie, camping is a big pastime for people. They'll go and spend $70,000 on a Hilux, right?
Yeah.
They get their apprenticeship, first time they've got some consistent cash flow coming through, and the financer goes, "Sure, mate, here's $70,000. Go enjoy your Hilux," right? And before you know it, they're forking out, $1,500 a month trying to make payments on this thing, right? So that's another big thing, is that the Hilux, get that later, or bring your expectation down. It doesn't have to be a brand new one, kind of thing.
Why does that happen?
It happens because, my friend, he went and got a Hilux, and man, he's living the good life, and he's going out camping, and geez, that looks like fun. I want to do that. Yeah, but Jack's also got a $70,000 loan, and he's also put himself
Yeah.
backwards. So it's all that short-term gain,
Yeah.
long-term harm kind of thing. And it's not, I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about social media, but it's our friends as well. You know, we see what they're doing and we kind of want to keep up with them in some way, right? And we don't want to feel like they're racing ahead of us in life sometimes.
So if they make like a big purchase, like a car, we're more enticed to
Oh,
make that big
definitely.
purchase as well, to
Definitely.
keep up with, I guess, that image and stuff.
Yeah, image and also, you know, if they're going out camping, you want to go camping with them, for example, right? Just to say something like that.
What does that cost them?
In literally, it costs them the ability to actually build wealth for their future, right? Again, it's like that's $1,500 a month that you can put into that car, or which is losing value every time you press the gas pedal down, right? Or you can go and invest that $1,500, which is actually going to make you 12% a year, after year after year after year. And then, hey, you want to go buy that car? You don't even need a loan. And it doesn't matter because that investment has made you more money than what that car is worth, right? Sure, go and take the money and do it. Yeah. But people don't want to wait that long. They see their friend driving the car now, and I want to drive the car now.
Yeah. So do you think a big thing is like managing the... Have you read a book called The Psychological of Money before?
No.
Well, it basically talks about, you know, this specifically talks about our relation with money. Basically, you know, why do we wear the fancy suits and have the nice cars and all that? And why did I basically spend $1,000 just for one suit, basically? And it's talking about the relationship. And I think, do you think we have to, a big part of, you know, not buying that car or, you know, falling into these traps is managing that side of things?
The relationship with money, massive, is a massive, massive thing that you need to manage. I guess the question that people should ask themselves is, what does money afford you? Or what does it mean to you to have money, right? That person is going and buying $1,000 suit. Why is he buying the suit? What kind of appearance is he trying to put forward? Now, if he's trying to put forward the appearance that I'm a successful businessman, well, that's good. But where's your business? Where's the success, right? You aren't there yet, right? Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. People always talk about, you know, dress for the job you want, not the job you have, kind of thing. But the point is to think about that relationship again of what you're buying. Is it because you're trying to create some sort of representation of yourself that's not real? That's not necessarily, I would say, the healthiest relationship to have with money. Again, go and buy a fancy car, right? Because you're trying to make your appearance, everything look schmick. You know? My relationship with money, I mean, some might say I'm too frugal or whatever it might be. But my relationship with money is not that I just like to hoard money. I don't like to just hoard wealth. And I think that you can definitely get to a point in your life where you have enough. You don't just need to keep accumulating and accumulating your whole life. My relationship with money is more about money affords freedom. Money affords freedom in the sense that you don't have to stress about, are you going to have food in the fridge and are you going to have electricity running through your house, right? It doesn't have to be freedom in the sense that you can just go on a private jet everywhere. Just the simple things. Does it afford you that freedom? Does it afford you the freedom of, okay, I want to go and buy a new car. Is that going to put me in a black hole? Well, can I do that? Oh, yeah, I've built the wealth. I can go and do that. So that's my relationship with money, is that it's not this endless, just, you know, stack and stack and stack more dollars on top of that. It's about, you know, getting to where I want to be. So I have financial freedom to not have to worry, right? To look after my partner I've got a baby on the way, so wanting to look after her as well. And then having that financial wealth behind me allows me to do that. That's my relationship.
So yeah, I'm very similar on the same page as you with that. And I know what you talk about. Some people mention things, and I've, speaking from my experience, definitely, cop some shit from friends and all that. Like, come on, just spend that money. And I feel like not many people do that, are very frugal with their money and all that kind of stuff. So how do we keep ourselves in check?
Um,
Like, tell the
here,
difference.
here you go. So keeping yourself in check is about, or I guess the lesson my father always taught me was balance. You can do everything you want in life as long as it's balanced, in the sense that he means that, and I'll use an example like, do you want to go to the pub and have some drinks with your friends? Do it. Go, right? Have some drinks, have a good time, right? But you don't need to do that every day, okay? It doesn't need to happen every single day. And, or you want to go traveling, do it. Like, I've been so fortunate to travel in my life. Go and see the world. There's so much to learn, right? You don't need to travel every other month. You don't have to do that, okay? Balance everything. And the same goes with, eating out, or the same goes with your car, that you don't need to get the flashes car. Let's bring that down for now, kind of thing. Balance is so important, that do the things that you want to do in life, but do it in, do it modestly, do it in, um, you know, with a bit of discipline, let's call it. Yeah. It's like,
No, it makes sense. Where my mind kind of leads to is what if I don't have that level of discipline and I celebrate every little win and I go out and all that kind of stuff.
fair enough. So
Um,
that's where setting those hard restrictions for yourself is so important. Another great reason why I love to help young people invest into managed funds, let's say, is because they can't, if they're on a night out, it's not linked to their credit card. They can't spend it. So there's no emotional, even though emotionally they might want to just go and spend the money, it's not easy in that sense, right? So yeah, if that's the kind of person you are, and again, you got to be realistic with yourself, right? If you know that you're not good at, you crack under pressure, you got a rubber arm, your friends keep twisting you to like, come on, Lori, come on, let's go. If you know that's who you are, yeah, just literally you get paid, park the money into the managed fund or whatever you're doing into your, if you've got a house already, like don't put an offset account, just put it straight onto the loan, and get rid of that money in a sense as fast as you can. And then, like I said, as humans, we will learn to adapt, and we will learn to spend whatever's left in the account, and we'll find a way to spend it. But we know we've already put the rest of it away into our future, whatever we're doing.
Yeah. What about getting other people to manage our money for us?
Yeah, from
Is that like a good idea? Like, say, a parent or a friend or.
I honestly, I don't think so. A friend, definitely not. Parent, I don't think so, because you got to learn to be an individual at some point in your life anyway. I guess, like,
Put yourself in your own
yeah, like,
yeah.
exactly. You can't just like keep going to mum to sort it out for you. You got to
Yeah.
sort of take the reins at some stage. So, um, no, it should just be you who's doing it. Um, what was the second part to your question? Sorry, it was like,
No, it's literally just I'm curious because I've seen some people, they're not good with money, and other people have to help them out with that. They're very impulsive, um, but I think you hit it right on the head. I feel like my perspective is they can't manage your money forever. Like you have some accountability in that area. But I was just curious and threw that out there to you. But
I would add as well. Sorry, I just thought of this, is that like You can go to an advisor and ask them to manage your money and finances for you as well, um, which, without selling the financial planning thing too hard, can be really beneficial, because they can put a lot of those control measures in place for you, and sort of, most importantly, they keep you accountable. In the same sense that if your mum tells you you're spending too much money,
Mm.
go away, mum, stop, like,
Yeah.
stop trying to manage me.
Yeah.
Whereas your advisor tells you you're spending too much money, you go, oh, crap, maybe I'm spending too much
Yeah.
money, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So an advisor can keep you accountable, but by no means do you need to necessarily have an advisor.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away from the fact that you should try and talk to them and just pick up, like, sort of, get that knowledge from them, and just like absorb all that knowledge, and then you can sort of take it from there, right?
Make that decision.
Yeah, but again, at the end of the day, it's yourself,
Yeah.
and you're just seeking that information to absorb, right?
How much do you think it is, in terms of falling into these traps? How much of it is a mindset versus actual knowledge?
Mm, I've got to sit on the fence here. This is a 50-50. Definitely, if people had more reliable knowledge, I think they would fall into less of those traps that we were talking about. Um, but then mindset as well. Like, again, and we sort of talked about at the start of the podcast, is that you 17-year-old probably is not even thinking about their first house, right? Probably not. They literally just graduated school. They probably want to go to schoolies. They probably want to, like, travel or something and just party and have some fun.
Yeah.
So big chunk of it is mindset. But if you're the kind of young man that wants more out of your life, and you want more, like, freedom, financial freedom in your life, right? Set those goals for yourself, even at a young age. And like I said, be realistic. It's going to take time, but and it doesn't have to be specific. That's so crucial. It doesn't have to be, like, to the T, but just have a direction that you want to go and work towards it.
Mm-hmm. What should someone listening stop immediately doing that's costing them?
Gambling.
Gambling.
Straight away. Yeah, stop gambling.
Yeah.
Jesus, they make an absolute killing off young people, honestly. Yeah, stop gambling.
Are you talking about like just casinos or just like in life, just
sports betting, races? Yeah, so literally, not so much in life.
Yeah.
More talking about literally. If you're going to gamble in terms of, like, life, from a young age is the best time to do it. What I mean by that, just so I don't get my words mixed up here, is, I guess, maybe like yourself, right?
Yeah.
Opportunity, to earn a wage in Kalgoorlie, right? And it's you're moving all the way across the country. You don't know what a lifestyle is going to be like in Kalgoorlie. You don't know what, the job is going to be like.
Yeah.
You took a gamble. You took a risk on that. That's what I'm talking about. Is, like, take those opportunities, right? See where they lead, right? And go from there, kind of thing, right? So, yeah, in terms of gambling and in that sense, but otherwise, I'm talking literally stop, like, just wasting money.
Yeah,
That's rubbish stuff. In terms of other things to sort of stop immediately, nothing, like, again, everything else just in moderation, right? Everything else just in balance, and you'll be okay.
Yeah. Now, I haven't dabbled into like gambling and all that, but is it like a big issue? Have you seen that?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're aware, but gambling companies are becoming some of the wealthiest in the world, and they're more accessible now than ever because of sports betting and betting apps. It's no longer like, like a casino. You have to go to a third place to do it, right? You have to leave your house, get in your car, drive there, go to the ATM. It's a hassle. Now you're sitting on the couch, pull your phone. I'm going to put $10. What's $10? I'm going to put it there. Okay, done. So the accessibility to it is creating this massive pandemic where young people are just, and it's like micro transactions as well, right? So they're just feeding all this money to the system that they're getting dribs and drabs back. Um, and it's creating, like, because we talk about it as well, it's creating a big mental health issue, and almost a dependence on that, like, dopamine that people get from gambling. It's always been there. I mean, people have been getting addicted to gambling for hundreds of years, but now it's just so accessible, and especially to young people. So it's just like, I guess, triggering those neurons at such a fast pace all the time. Notification hits your phone. Oh, you won your bet, or here's, like, we're doing double down trifectas, and all that is happening, and it's all like flashing in front of you. So it just creates this, like, unhealthy mentality, and it's massive issue happening not just in Australia but all around the world.
Yeah. No, it actually kind of triggered a memory. It's kind of a weird concept because it's like, oh, I won $300. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Blah blah blah. How much in total have you won or lost? He's like, oh, I've probably put like 1,000 in, like over this whole time, like not just in one hitting, but like over a couple of years. So I'm like, yeah, I was expecting a different answer, but it's kind of like right there, the gambling.
Yeah. And what were you expecting?
I was kind of thinking, like, basically like cars or maybe uni loans or stuff like that. Like, I think that's what I'm glad you brought it up, because I didn't even like. Yeah, we know it's gambling, and we know it's bad. So, and you mentioned a couple of things of how they made it so accessible that it's just like that. I didn't even think about what as like maybe because I haven't been much in it. I've literally just stayed completely away from it.
It's for the best.
But I've seen, now that you've brought it up, a lot of my friends, and I've seen them on Sportsbet. I've seen them when we're watching the UFC, put $10 down. And I didn't think, it just didn't pop out how much that could actually affect and all that. So no, I'm glad you brought that.
No, I mean, and like to your friend's story as well, and I've seen it again with my friends. They'll tell me these amazing stories, and I don't want to set some like precedent that I've definitely like had my days at the casino, in the sense that I've had great nights there, gone with some friends, had a good time. Again, moderation. Right?
Yeah.
And I've heard all the same stories, like, we put, I was just walking out of the casino, I put $20 on Black 15, spun the roulette, and it came up, and before I knew it, I had $500 in my pocket, right? Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next day, I'm talking to him. Oh yeah, how's it all going? Oh, not good, Heddwyn. Not good. Oh, what happened? Oh man, I went to the casino today, and I got wiped out, $2,000 over the counter. So, Jesus. Okay. So it's like, he'll come and tell you all these amazing stories about all these wins he had, right? But never does he or never would he sort of think back and be like, well, that was all fun, but geez, I've probably wasted 10 times more money than what I ever
actually made.
Won back.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's like, it's just so big that you wouldn't even think about it. But like now, like sitting here looking at it, like I can see how it costs so much.
Can I expand that you brought up very briefly about student loans? With that, go and get a student loan. Right? Go and get an education. Definitely. Don't wait on it. For me, I did my education and continued working at the same time. Right. And if you've got that ability to do it, do it. But if you don't, get the education first. Focus on that. Right. The only thing I'd say, so there's been a lot of talk in the media about loans, student loans in particular. They've now, what the interest rates are, all the rest of it, they've now been capped by the government. So there is interest to it. But what it benefits you in the long term for your career, for your income, for your ability to build wealth, get that private jet that we keep coming back to. It all starts with having that strong education.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where, because I got into uni for finance and economics. I was only really interested in learning how money works in our economy and all that kind of stuff. I clashed because my mom is like a graphic designer, for example, and I think she's done some certificates in that, but she hasn't gone to uni and all that. And she's very good at what she does. So it's just like, and she still has like 20 years later clients for like 20 years still coming back to her. So I feel like, she has a lot of experiences and that's and all that kind of stuff. So a big thing with when I went into economic finance is I just wanted to make money. That was kind of my mindset. I don't, and a big thing of going to uni is I didn't want to go to uni and get into that debt in terms of, because my goal was just to make money. And I thought of it as similar to a car loan. Like, do I put myself in this debt or do I just go and try and experience, start a business, try and make money, like talk to people and all that kind of stuff? So I'm curious, what's your thoughts?
There's a lot to unpack. I'll start from what you finished on and sort of go from there. So the car loan, you're buying a depreciating asset. When you are getting in an HEX debt or an education loan, you're investing in yourself. You're investing in yourself in your future income. Okay, so the return is what is your salary going to be after you get that education. Okay, now there's three ways, and you started with it. Your goal was to increase your income. Okay, there's three ways that you can increase your income, and not all of them. In fact, only one of them involve getting a university education, right? Your other one is that you can get a TAFE education and become a tradesman of any sort. Whatever trade you get, you'll definitely have a much higher income than someone without a trade, right? Regardless. So, but either way, it's the same thing that is education, right? You learn a skill, a trade. The third is you can go down your mum's path, which is you start a business, right? And starting that business, you're your own boss. Whatever skills you have, you bring that into the business. But similar, and again to your mum's case, is that even though she never got a formal education, I'm sure she's upskilled herself, probably taught herself a lot of the skills that she needs to know to run that business in the first place. And I do agree that just because you go to uni doesn't necessarily mean they're going to give you and prepare you with all the right skills to, for whatever job you go into necessarily. But it is a far cry, a head start from just having nothing and trying to start a business without having any sort of skill or knowledge in the area that you're starting a business in, right? So in your mum's case, she's probably self-educated and self-taught.
She's done a little bit of, um, she's done like certificates and I'm not too sure.
No,
but,
that's we don't have
but
to.
I know it's a lot of. She's just been in it for such a long time, and
and
you just pick up a thing when you in the industry for that long.
Exactly, and anyone who's been to university or even maybe trade, not so much, because you kind of, as you do the trade, you're sort of also doing work experience at the same time. Or with university, you're like stuck in a classroom, and then suddenly here's a certificate, thank you, congratulations, thanks for paying us $50,000. Here you go. And you get thrown into an office and you're sort of learning everything for the first time, right? So with university, it definitely doesn't translate well over into the real workforce, but you learn how to learn and you learn a good base of skills that you need to get into that occupation. And what I'd also say on the university side is, and I've seen it with a lot of my friends, is they'll jump between degrees, okay? Because they're not 100% set on what they're learning. Maybe they start learning, they don't enjoy it, so they'll change, and they extend their time at university, they extend their debt as well, right? So a big thing that I also say is that just when you finish high school, you don't have to go straight to university, okay? Unless you know or are pretty certain what you want to do, okay?
Mm.
Otherwise, what I'd recommend is that you just spend some time to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
And when you know,
I think sorry to cut you off,
that's okay.
in terms of maximizing our wealth, like, you got uni, then you got, starting your own business and all that, and
Mm.
a regular job. What do you think is the best pathway in terms of maximizing your wealth?
The best, starting your own business,
Okay.
okay? Being a business owner means that you can scale so much faster in the sense that you've got control over
Mm.
it, okay? Um, but a lot of businesses, like again, financial planning, you can't start a business without having the education. Same with like if you were a mechanic,
Mm.
you can't just go start a workshop without having first
Yeah.
the trade behind you, right? But if you are in those positions where you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, I really want to increase my wealth, I really want to increase my income, I really want to build into the future, start your own business, okay? Um, Working for yourself, you know that every bit of energy that you feed into that machine, right, you're going to see dividends. And it may not be immediately. In fact, a lot of businesses, it's the first year is the hardest
Mm.
year, right? But the ability to scale from there is your biggest thing, right? You're a mechanic. You can keep getting new clients, cars in, work on more, hire some staff. You know, you're one person. You can only work on one car at a time. But if I can pay him $70 to work on that car for an hour, and I get paid $150 for that, well, now suddenly I'm now working on two cars at once, three,
Yeah.
four. So you can scale, right? So if you really are wealth driven and you've really got that right mindset where you're going to work hard, you know it's not a quick thing, you're going to build over time, start a business.
Let's say they don't have that right mindset, and they're not, you know, as no, oh, especially young people, not as knowledgeable or skilled, because we're just starting out, and we're still finding ourselves and developing. In terms of, you know, maximizing that wealth, would you? I kind of lost my train of thought, but
Are you sort of asking about, like, let's say you're not in that position to start a business, how can you maximize your wealth then? Is that what you?
yeah, should we look at ourselves before making a business and considering those other routes?
And you definitely should. I mean, the right traits are, or the right mindset is crucial when starting a business. Okay, and not everyone has it, which is fine.
How do they know if they're right to make that? Because when I got out of high school, it's like I felt like I had to make a decision.
Yeah,
Like for me, I was around a very academic group,
yeah,
and I know they would crush and finish
yeah.
uni. So I know 4 years they would have a degree and be good.
Mm,
And I'm like, do I go this other route in 4 years?
mm. Where are you going to be compared to
I
your
have
peers?
nothing to show,
Yeah.
and that was like a big fear of mine. So I'm wondering, like, I guess, yeah.
So it's a very good question. How do you know if you have the right traits? You may not be aware, but the first time I met you, I knew that you had the traits. Okay, and maybe maybe it comes from experience that I've just met so many people through my job.
Mm.
If someone is listening to this podcast and really absorbing what I'm saying and really finding themselves going like, yeah, you know, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The right traits are you willing to work hard, like really hard? Are you willing to put the hours in? Okay. Do you understand the time factor? Do you understand that it's going to be a 10-year thing, right? These were two things when I met you straight away, that you were just going to go and work really hard, right? Get a job in mining, work hard, and you knew that it was a 10-year thing. You knew that straight away,
Mm.
right? Now you didn't finish your uni degrees. Doesn't matter. That mentality, that mindset was already there. So again, to your listeners, if they are sort of finding themselves understanding a lot of what I'm saying, they might already realize that that is the mindset, a dedicated work ethic, and a realistic expectation of where they want to be and the time it will take to get there.
Yeah. So it's really considering who they are as a person and what it actually takes, and then deciding from there.
Yeah. And because we're talking about it, so you have the other side of the coin. Now, um, you may be a very hardworking person, right? Um, but you may not want to start a business for whatever reason, right? That's also absolutely fine. I just want to say that as well. Okay, you don't have to start a business. You can work hard, and as long as you, um, you know, control your money properly, you can still, over enough time, get to where you want to be.
Yeah. I just think because it does. I know a lot of people, especially me at that stage, come to mind. You know, I'm happy where it's ended up, but when I was first there, I was not confident that I'd end up here. But I want to dive a little more into what does financially successfully like mean to you specifically?
Yeah. Um, to me specifically, financial success means that I have a nice house paid off, not a mansion, just a comfortable house for me and my family. I can take us on a holiday somewhere once a year, and I never worry about do we have enough money for groceries and the bills and school and squash training or something, right?
Yeah.
That's what financial success means to me.
So have the basics covered.
Everything but the worry is gone. The stress is gone.
Yeah.
Right. Again, doesn't have to be an extravagant life necessarily, right? And I definitely have my lofty goals as well, but they're not necessarily wealth related. They're more what do I want to achieve personally, and how can I help people with that, which is completely separate to financial planning. But from a financial aspect, that's it. I just want to be in that position of my life.
How has that definition changed over time?
Um, like, how is that?
Like, was that your mindset from right from the beginning, or like for me, I think you mentioned a little bit like helping people. That mine, when I got into the social media, was all about making as much money, working in the mines and all that. It kind of shifted towards to how do I actually want to help people? What does it mean to, and especially with the mines, I had this idea, that dream, and all that kind of stuff. But right now, with the income, like it's a good life. I can go to the gym, have all the essentials. So it made me think like, oh, what day in
What else
life,
is there?
is actually. So it's kind of shifted as I've grown.
Yeah.
So
Uh, I guess on that, and from a financial success perspective as well, is that I probably didn't have it all figured out when I was 17, 18. I definitely didn't have a clear picture of it, and I think that's probably similar to most people. But some of the simple things, like I just wanted my own space, my own house. What that would look like and play out to be, I had no idea. But I just wanted my own space. Right? So success to me was having a nice house, but also I knew that I don't need like something with 12 bedrooms and 18 toilets.
was it blurry at the start, and it's just more, I guess, you have more clarity of what it actually means?
Definitely.
Okay.
Right. Like even things like I was just putting the money away. Obviously didn't even know what house I was going to buy. I didn't know where I was going to buy. I didn't know if I was going to be buying it with someone or by myself, I had no idea about any of that. It was just knowing some point in my future, that's what I want. And
You're not too sure now, but you're going to decide or figure it out. So putting some away towards that. in what ways did you provide clarity to that?
Yeah. Part of it is just as you get older, life experience, you start to figure it out a bit more. Um, and I'm, like I said, I'm only 28. I'm no sage of wisdom or anything along those lines. But, you just start to develop in life and start to figure out where you want to live, what you enjoy, what kind of lifestyle you want to have. All that comes, you know. Um,
So you didn't, um, like say, I have this goal. You didn't sit down and like crunch out the numbers exactly.
Definitely, I mean, I'm a financial planner.
Yeah.
Of course, I did at some
Okay.
stage, right? But when I first started, I didn't have the education or anything behind me. I was
Yeah.
17, right? So definitely, as I started to educate and learn a bit more, then I definitely started crunching the numbers out,
Do you think it, you know, if you're back then at 17, would you really emphasize on crunching those numbers, or is it just good just to let them try and figure it out on their own?
Don't crunch the numbers in like we were saying. You don't need to have the specifics worked out. Crunch the numbers in terms of like a budget. Crunch the numbers or crunch whatever you need to in terms of have an idea of where you want your life to be, what kind of life you want to have,
Mm.
and then what finances you need to make
Mm.
that reality. And then you can start crunching numbers, right? But really early on, you don't need to. Just have those fundamentals in place to say, I'm not going to overspend on lifestyle. I'm going to build some money for my future. And, and then I can sort of work out the fine details later on.
Mm. So it's basics and like it'll come. Just have like an idea.
Yeah.
And make sure you follow. From I don't know. That's we talked a little bit from your view. I want to continue down that route. Your view, working in this space, how have you seen money change people or expose them?
Hmm. How have I seen money change people? To be honest, as far as my professional career goes, the money doesn't change people too much. In the sense that I guess I'm a bit there as a lever for them, that I keep it a bit in check. If they're getting a little bit out of
Okay.
control, I'm a bit there as a control mechanism for them. In terms of outside of my client base and in terms of just like, what I see financially in the world is the biggest thing just comes down to that, as people like get money, they really just start to, increase their spending unnecessarily. Um, I guess that's probably the biggest thing. They're just like, yeah, get sucked into that trap that we were talking about. Um, in terms of change, like I guess that's negative change. In terms of like, do you want to talk about positive change? I guess would be.
I was just seeing like you've obviously seen and helped people reach their goals.
Mm.
From your experience, has it really changed them once that money aspect comes in? But you've touched a little bit about it. I was curious to whether you think a big thing is relationship as a guy with women and money is a big reflection of them.
Mm.
I've heard that go around quite a bit. So I was curious if you think, yeah, if the money aspect reflects them.
Okay. Yeah, from that side of things, um, when when people have money, they do start to flaunt it more. It's gonna happen.
Flaunt, sorry.
Flaunt, they kind of want people to know that they got some money.
Okay,
Again, that public perception comes in. Um, it changes people, right? Definitely changes people. But I would say that's the minority. The majority of people, um, they they like what they like, and that doesn't really change them too much. It might just be that because now they've got the wealth to do it, instead of going and buying, I don't know, an Audi R8, maybe they go buy a Porsche 911 or something, right? You know, they sort of go,
Yeah.
or let's use a better example is like, instead of going and buying like the 4-bedroom family home, they'll go and buy the mansion instead, right? So in that sense, like it sort of does change people, but they are inherently to their core is, and because again, these same wealthy people that I meet, they still like to just like drink, I don't know, your $10 bottle of wine, for example,
Yeah.
right? For them, they're like, um, you know, this is my wine. I like this wine, and I'm not going to change from that, you know, and I don't need to. And actually, just what you'll find as well, that a lot of these people that have wealth, it's taken because it's taken time to get there. Their respect for money is a lot higher. They don't just go and like waste money like it's nothing, right? There's like a purpose to it, and a lot of the time they'll be like, even that bottle of wine, like, why would I spend $20 on a bottle of wine? I can get a bottle of wine for $10. And you sort of turn to that person, you say, well, you know, $20 a bottle of wine, what does it matter to you?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right? Like, why do you care about that extra $10? And but because they have had that same strong mindset for so long, the money doesn't break them. I feel like the money breaks them when they get the money quickly. Like, you've probably seen it as well working Kalgoorlie this last few years, that someone will graduate high school, they'll go get a job at the mines immediately on 6 figures, right? The next day. They've gone from nothing to a 6-figure income,
Yeah.
right? And so there's no time to build respect for the money and to build a good relationship with money. Instead, it's just like, here you go, keep driving that dump truck, here you go. And so they just build such a bad relationship with money that they just go and like, you know.
No, I have seen that. I call it like an amplifier.
Yeah.
But you know, I talk to some friends and before they come over here, and it's interesting because some friends I don't care about. No, that sounds bad. Like I know they'll be good with money. Was I trying to say?
Yeah.
Like I can hand them a $20 note. I know it's going good. There's some people where some friends where I'd hand them money. I'd be like, it's probably going to gambling or something like that. So I really talked about. It's interesting because once you come here and you get that paycheck, you're set and you have that money coming in. It's just like what I've seen is I don't know if your experience is if they have like bad habits, drinking, alcohol, or anything like that, or shopping, this just gets amplified, especially with money, if that. So
definitely, right?
yeah,
And because they never had that time to adjust, like, or that time to build good habits, and it's just like, here you go, here's your paycheck.
yeah. Do you like you talked about respect for money? This is where it's hard because hearing your story and all that for someone, I guess that has money or hasn't seen that side, those difficult times. How do we build respect and that relationship, a good relationship with money?
It's definitely hard. I mean, even in my position as well, like, I think I'm very fortunate that my parents didn't just like hand me a cushy job, and they made me sort of work and upskill myself and get the education, right? Like, even when I finally finished my education, they only paid me 50 grand a year after finishing a 3-year uni course. It wasn't like anything crazy, right? So I was very fortunate that because I didn't have heaps of money, even as a young man, I built like really strong, a lot of discipline, which also creates a good relationship with money where you learn to respect it, every kind of dollar, without, being too super frugal, but you just understand that it's hard work to get that money. You know? I think where people build bad relationships with that respect for money is when they do just get it given to them. Whether that's through, a nice job straight away that's paying really good money without needing any prior experience. It's always good to have the money coming in, but there's never a chance to build a respect for it. right? I mean, um, or I guess like especially some young people, not saying all, but if the parents are there, like, oh, no worries, son, like, oh, did you dent your car? Here you go and fix your car, right? Oh, oh, that's not good to hear that you don't have money for your rent this week. Here you go, here's rent money. And I'm again, not everyone has been that fortunate, but I've definitely seen some of my friends that have gone to uni that have been very nicely looked after.
Yeah.
And so that as well, they don't learn the consequences of not managing their money, and so they don't build a good respect for it. It's like, oh, I'll always get bailed out. So
What's what's like one thing that you think they could do to, build a way better understanding?
way better understanding or
Yeah.
respect for?
Yeah, understanding and respect for money. Like for example, my first lesson that, my mum taught me was like a debit card.
Oh,
And
yeah.
basically, you know, the difference between a credit card and debit card, she explained that and said basically debit, you have the money, that's all you can spend.
Yeah,
Yeah, a credit card where you go into debt and have to pay back. She's like, you only can spend what you have
yeah,
and all that kind of. So that was like the first. From your position, what would be one specific thing,
mm,
you can leave the audience that they could take away and be like, build a better understanding and relationship with
yeah.
money?
We'll see straight away your mum was teaching you that discipline side of it, right?
Mm.
So that's maybe partly where your respect for money has come from
Yeah.
because you learned discipline from such a young
Yeah.
age. Um, something that people can do to learn that respect, that's it's tough. A lot of it, I think, does come from how you get brought up, and you
Mm.
know, and like you said, having the right guardians to shepherd you and say, hey, look, let's not go crazy and spend all this money and do this, right? Um, and on that as well, like, yeah, get a debit card, not a credit card, all those sort of things that parents should be teaching their kids. Unfortunately, not everyone has
Mm.
has that. If only that were the way. But I think just as an individual, all you can do is just set that like strict discipline for yourself in whichever way you can,
Mm.
right? It's a simple thing. And sometimes building that respect for money as well will just come out of that strong discipline. Because even if you get that nice, cushy job, but you are strict to saying, I'm only going to spend $200 a week for fun stuff, right? You learn to stick to that,
Mm.
right? And not break that
Yeah.
pattern. But it's a tough one to write. Part of it is just your
Yeah.
upbringing. So
Yeah. No, I just thought I'd throw that out there to see. Because,
yeah.
no, I see like, from psychologists and all that kind of stuff, the upbringing is so important.
Mm.
And, just for like their mental state and all that, but also, there's a financial element in our lives, regardless, just for like and all that kind of stuff. So seeing how that affects them, yeah, I was just curious to see
Mm.
your thoughts. We're coming to the end. I got one more question for you. So, with all the knowledge and skills and experience that you have now, what would you tell your 20-year-old self to do differently?
Hmm. What advice would I give my younger self? That is a tough question, which, okay. Advice I'd give my younger self is to, see, the thing is, financially, I don't really have anything. So the advice I'd give my younger self is this, right? To don't get into a relationship so early in your life, right? Spend some time by yourself and learn everything that you need to learn. Focus on that career or that goal that you have, right? truthfully, that's the advice I would have given myself. Because again, as much as it may sound like it, um, I'm no saint, and I've never not broken my discipline from time to time. The discipline is coming back into line. Um, but those sort of, I think that I never had that opportunity to just focus on myself and what I'm doing and build that completely first before a relationship.
Why do you think that time to yourself so impactful?
I think that what it teaches you how to be comfortable with yourself, and it teaches you who you are as an individual, which sounds super plushy, I know. But like coming straight out of high school, you've spent all this time with your peers and friends that they all impact you in certain ways. You never really get a lot of time to just yourself. But after high school, that happens, and you start to find your more close knit circle of friends, and that sorts of starts to become a thing, and you start to figure out yourself a little bit more. And I think that when you get into a relationship at a young age, it creates this distraction. And you do start to want to make that person happy, and it can be good fun as well. But it sort of delays yourself a little bit. It's sort of because love is a crazy drug, you sort of put that on the back burner and you start to, go in that way. But it's really, it's a terrible answer to your question because.
No, it's actually a great answer to that question, because I see from another aspect is when they don't figure themselves out and they jump into money and they jump into relationships, it actually not only affects them in what you said, their long-term goals, but also in terms of the other person. If you're not set in yourself and haven't figured yourself out, you kind of start to, want to, make them happy and all that kind of stuff. And when you forget about yourself, it applies a lot of pressure to them because, you need them to make you happy. So it's like a big thing. And yeah. I think I wasn't expecting that one, but
Yeah,
I feel
no,
like it's pretty good.
it's
to
not
break
quite
it down.
finance related, but
A whole nother section, but yeah, it's good. I appreciate that.
thanks,
Thanks.
thanks for having me on,
Yeah,
Levi.
no,
I appreciate
good.
it.